All right, we are now live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a podcast called Let's Talk About It, Steph. My name is Dale Frey, and I'm stepping in for Stephanie right now, who will be joining the podcast a little bit later. She's just running a little bit late right now. This is a weekly podcast where we like to introduce candidates who are running for office. In this case, we have two candidates with us tonight. And John, we're going to start off with you to please introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you're running for.
Sure. My name is John Buckwald. I am running for Texas District 24 U.S. House. That is, of course, Beth Van Dyne. So we're hoping to unseat her. She's a MAGA Republican, and she really needs to go. She's pretty much just voted with Donald Trump every time. So really not doing too much to change anything, and that's what we really need in office is change.
Absolutely. And Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us who you are and what you're running for?
Yes, I would love to. Hello, everybody back there at home. My name is Michelle Butler. I am running for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 6 here in Denton County. That covers the Denton County portion of Dallas, Louisville, the Colony, Carrollton, and Plano. I am running to preserve the integrity of our courts and bring back community courts that are places where we mediate problems and basically not funnel people more into the justice system because most often working families their main point of contact with the justice system is the justice of the peace precincts and the way that the justice of the peace courts and the way that it's currently structured right now, it keeps people in a cycle of poverty. And what I want to do in this court is essentially make the court work for working families. That means having hours that do not make working people give up paychecks to show up to court. And I want to reduce default judgments because default judgments keep families in cyclical poverty. And I want to put that, I want to put a stop to that so that people can actually have the opportunity to flourish and, in this economy that we're living in and give working families the chance to make it out there in the world, and the justice system should not be a hurdle for that. And that is the reason why I'm running for this court, is to make it work for people again.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, sorry, I was talking on mute for a second there. Very good, very good. So I believe both of you are actually in primaries right now. And I believe early voting is actually coming up. It's coming up very soon. I believe in the next 2 weeks or so, I think early voting starts, right?
6 days.
Less than that. The 17th through the 27th is early voting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for running. I know it's very, very stressful to have a primary. I've had a primary before. I've had a runoff election before, and it's tough. It's really tough. It's really stressful. But I don't know. You're probably going to get this question a lot, so I'll go ahead. It's I know sometimes it could be a difficult question to answer, but it's one that is necessary. And John, we'll start with you. The concept here is, given that you're in a primary, why should voters choose you over your opponents? And or what special attributes do you bring to your campaign?
Well, I think one of the major points is my experience. So I've spent 18 years in high tech and healthcare. I've worked a lot fixing broken organizations, and Congress right now is truly a broken organization. One is that they've forgotten who the boss is, and the boss is us. Congress has forgotten that completely, and that really goes for both sides of the aisle. They're not doing a good job of representing us. Number two, and this is really key, they've forgotten how to listen to each other. So even within a party across the aisle, you've got people unable to listen to each other, unable to come to consensus. It's truly a broken organization. And then they don't listen to their constituents anymore, really, either. They're pursuing agendas that don't necessarily represent the interests of their constituents, or they won't stand up for their constituents. So they're failing on both ends of that. I spent years fixing broken organizations. That's a lot of what I did. And I think we really need a lot of organizational change skills to be brought in to Congress. One thing I am able to do, I can quickly build credibility because of my background. I'm a professor at both SMU Cox Business School and UT Dallas. I can talk to all kinds of people. I work with all kinds of people, and fixing a broken organization, no one person is going to do it on their own, but we need those skills to come into Congress. And that's something that's a huge differentiator that I will bring into Congress for our constituents.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. I'll also pass off the same question over to you, Michelle. A question of being, given that the primaries are coming up and you're in a primary, why should voters choose you in the primary? And or is there anything special that you bring to your campaign? Also, just real quick, technical inquiry. When I spotlight you, are you guys seeing this when I bring one candidate, or are
Yes.
you just always seeing the three? Okay. All right. Cool. So, Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a very important question, especially like in primaries when we're discussing things that pertain to a judicial seat, right? It's about voting for people who basically exude readiness for the bench. And a little bit about my background is I've spent 17 years in the social movement justice campaign space. That means that I was managing $1 million budgets and managing presidential teams on campaigns like Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. Those teams are like 280 people and managing $1 million budgets, and not only scaling campaigns but scaling movements and policies and making sure that working families are represented in the policies that people were writing at the time. And it's important to have someone on the bench who understands the gravity of the decisions that are rendered from the bench and how they affect working families. And a lot of my skills for the past 17 years as it pertains to movement building, making campaigns successful, and fighting in the social justice space are directly transferable into being able to not only manage a courtroom, manage court staff, and also manage the budget in the courtroom. Not only that, but also understand how to apply judgments in the jurisdiction that a JP has within the cases that are on the docket, and how to make sure that the docket is cleared, and making sure that people are getting that justice and they're getting it in a timely, fair, and equitable manner. And not only that, JP6 has been my home for 20 years. For over 20 years, I got married. I got my marriage license in the JP court right over there at the Sandy Jacobs Government Center. When I naturalized as a citizen, am I frozen? Oh, I'm back.
Oh,
When I
no, you're back.
naturalized it as a citizen, it was the court in which this building sits that I went to go apply for my first passport. It is the building in which this court sits where I went to go get my children's first birth certificate. So the families in JP6 and the people in JP6 in this community are families who have grown alongside mine. I know the needs of the people in this community, and when I went to go fight nationally for our policies that affect us here at home, is always the people that I was always thinking about, who are my neighbors, who are putting my literature in their shops and in their businesses. And so it is one more about readiness for the bench and understanding the full scope of the job and how to run an efficient court.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. If Stephanie was here, she would be hitting the, there's like an applause button somewhere here, like there's a digital soundboard. But speaking of,
Hi,
it
Steph.
looks
Hi,
like
Steph.
Stephanie has made it. And making sure that I have, hey, Steph, how you doing? You're a little bit dark right now, but, oh, I think you're in the car right now. Is that right, Steph?
Yes, I'm driving, but I'm listening to y'all.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, well, thank you for that. There was a very good response, and I was just saying to them, actually, Stephanie, if I could figure out where that applause button was, I would totally hit that button. But here, how about I ask this question? This might be getting a little ahead of ourselves, and Steph, I'm just going to take you off the stage just until we get better lighting. But I'm going to ask this question, and this is a question that's usually asked after primaries, but sometimes it's a fun one to answer. And it has to do with, who is your Republican opponent? Tell the audience if you're facing an incumbent, and why you believe that your Republican opponent is not qualified for the current position that you're running for.
I can start with that. Beth Van Dyne, she really just represents the Trump administration. It's really interesting. I talked to thousands of people in the district before I decided to run to see if people might be ready to make a change. It's interesting. People say, well, I don't like her, but I voted for her anyway. And I think that she is a beatable opponent for a couple of reasons. One is we really need to run the campaign that the people of the district want. So I talked to thousands of people and built a platform that matches what the people of the district want. They're going to vote for their own platform as opposed to a platform from a lobbyist, a party, whatever that may be. So that's one thing that people in the district feel that we haven't been able to offer them is a platform that really fits their needs. So that's what I've done. You go to my website, look at my platform. It's comprehensive, holistic, and it's really driven off thousands of voter conversations. Number two, just the fact that people feel that they kind of know she's someone they don't particularly like. So if they can find a reason or an excuse to vote for a Democrat, they'll take one. But we really have to give them one. They're not just going to vote against her simply because she's a Trump lackey. We've got to give them a really good reason to vote Democrat and make them feel like they've been heard, because that's what they're missing with us, is they haven't felt heard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Michelle, I'll be honest with you, I probably should have looked this up. I'm not as familiar with your opponent from the other side of the aisle. Do you have an incumbent that you're facing, or who's
We
your?
we do have an incumbent, and being that I am a girl from the campaign world, they don't make it my business to give the opponents a platform and mention their names because we're not giving free publicity. But what I will say is that the incumbent that is sitting currently in this seat, one does not. I don't believe at this point in time where we are with our courts, statewide, federally, the Supreme Court, that we should be having Republicans, Trump Republicans, sitting in our most vulnerable local courts. And if you look especially at the demographics of these districts and how people vote in this district, having a Republican on our bench does not exemplify the values of this district. And on top of not only having someone who is a Republican and sitting in this bench for a relatively diverse blue district, we also have a JP incumbent who has taken developer money to the tune of $50,000, which to me signifies a complete conflict of interest, given that people who do come into this court are coming in at their most vulnerable moments, fighting sometimes, being self-representing against these big corporations and big developers, and not getting a fair shot at justice because it already feels so intimidating. And so that signals to me that a judge who takes money from developers and sometimes as people in this court, that's a conflict of interest, and people are not able to attain justice when such a level of conflict of interest exists. And so that's one of the reasons why I feel like a judge that sits on this bench should be someone who is running to give families a chance to thrive again, not to be in a political seat for their own career advancement.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. These are you guys are responding very quickly and very fast. That's really awesome. So you guys are definitely prepared for the public speaking. That's really good. I had to go to Toastmasters for quite a while before I was able to speak without saying ums all the time. And you guys are very good public speakers. I will say that.
That's a really good compliment because sometimes I
Yeah.
feel like I'm trying to get it all out and I feel like it's moving faster than what I'm speaking.
Yeah, yeah. I actually got used to talking very, very fast when I was on doing TikToks back in the day, because it used to be that TikTok would limit the amount of time that you can have in your reel. I think Instagram used to do it as well. They've relaxed that a little bit, but it used to be that you basically had to dish it all out in like under 1 minute, right? So, but then I think the problem with me though that I realized is that when I would be physically at a campaign forum, uh, some individuals, particularly elderly individuals, would say that I was talking so fast to the point they could not understand me. So that was another thing I had to be mindful of as well. But yeah, but we'll get back to the podcast. Stephanie has had a couple of topics that she dropped to kind of focus on, and I'm gonna give us kind of two competing topics to review. And my notes is basically Stephanie said we need to talk about how we can work across the aisle, working together in a politically divided climate. And I'm going to add in there talking about the rise of extremism that we see from the other side of the aisle. Because sometimes it can feel like reaching to the other side of the aisle, it's like reaching through a barbed fence. And I'm seeing a lot of extremism on the rise. It seems that there are individuals, for example, the Frisco City Council, for example, we had a whole bunch of people, like 8 to 10 people, come and talk about what they call the Great Replacement theory, claiming that there's a bunch of people who are Indians and the Indians are replacing white people. It's basically white supremacist rhetoric dressed up. But there's that. There's what we're seeing with ICE, and it seems that It seems that. Well, I'll ask you guys this first. Do we feel like the Republicans are kind of backing down a little bit? They're realizing that their extremism is going too far? Or do you think things are just kind of getting partisan and more worse? What are your thoughts on that? On the current, if you were to put your thumb on the pulse of the country, how do you feel the different sides of the aisle are going about that?
I think the Republicans are more extremist than ever.
I think a lot of it's fear driven. I mean, why have we been electing people like Trump, right? People see this is really what it comes down to. People see the American dream slipping away. They feel more uncertain about the future. They get scared. And whether they're MAGA or not, they're going to vote for anything they think could make a change, could alleviate their fears. Fear is the biggest driver, I think, of a lot of what we're seeing. And what is hate? Hate is the ultimate form of fear. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why we're seeing all these divisions. That's why we're seeing the hate we're seeing. Is it really comes down to the fear that people have had over the last 15 years that the American dream is slipping away. So if we want to change that, we have to alleviate the fear. Now, what about Republicans in Congress? A lot of these people are fear driven. These people are driven. They're going to back Trump if they're afraid somebody's going to vote him out or call him out. What they really believe, you would have to talk to a lot of them to really find out or listen to them over time. Some of them truly are hateful people, but then there are other people who are just scared. And you want to be able to separate those two people out because the people who are scared are the ones who are more likely to start moving away from Trump. The people who are really hateful, well, they're gonna stay with Trump. They're gonna stay extreme. So when you get to Congress, if I'm a freshman walking in, I'm going to want to identify which of these people are truly MAGA extremists and which are just driven by fear. What are their fears? And can we get them to change? If they're fear driven, you can usually get them to change. If they're truly hateful, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and you're asking why is it that people voted for Trump? I mean, I think you're right with the fear and the anger. Another thing too, I think definitely would be that Donald Trump is making the same mistake right now that Joe Biden was making, and that is to claim that the economy is doing well. Anytime any candidate running for office believes that the economy is doing well, even if you did believe it, my suggestion is this: don't say that out loud. Instead, tell the people what you're going to do to make the economy even better. Um, Joe Biden claimed that the economy was doing okay back in the day. Donald Trump's doing it now. One of my runoff election opponent tried doing the same thing, and it did not land well for him. So I think there's also the economic driver as well. I think as a factor here. We're in a stance right now where I believe half the country right now is struggling to pay to put food on the table, and definitely affects a lot of everyone. It affects everybody. So, but that said, um, I do want to continue this conversation though, because I have two competing thoughts in my head, and this is kind of an emotional feeling that I have in myself. versus a logical one, because I sometimes think to myself that, it's important when running for office to try to find those independents or those centrists, right? And even though it sometimes may feel like the centrists may be non-existent or are lesser and lesser in size, at the same time, too, I have a competing thought that basically says, well, do we really need to reach to the other side of the aisle? Because one common phrase I tell people a lot is that we do not live in a deep red state of Texas. We live in a non-voting state where only half the population is registered to vote. And of those, only half of those even show up to the voting booth. So what's better for a campaign? Is it trying to reach across the aisle, try to reach the centrists? Or is it to try to instead focus on trying to deliver voting turnout? What are your thoughts on that? What do you think is more important? Do you think it's trying to reach people in the center, or do you think voting turnout is the more important part of the campaign?
Well, as I sit here in all of my 17 years of campaign strategizing, I think you've asked a layered question, so I'm going to try to answer it in layers. There's only one formula for winning campaigns, and that is to get votes out. You have to find who your people are and what your votes are. And in order for you to have, to take office, you have to win votes. So you have to campaign and get the votes. And then another question you asked is more of a question about ideology and whether it's more we should be reaching across the aisle to try and work with Republicans. And this one is really tough for me because when we're speaking and we're sitting here and having a conversation about this Republican Party, this is no longer, let's say, the Republican Party of John McCain. This is not the Republican Party of Colin Powell when we're talking about reaching across the aisle and having talks about possibly passing things like a Clean Dream Act. We are dealing with the most extreme Republican Party of our lifetime. And the question that I like to ask people was, when was the last time that you heard a group of Republicans sitting together and saying, do you think it's important for us to reach over there and see what the Democrats can do so we can bring them over here to our side? They never do that. They don't ever use that as a formula to win elections. And coupled with my experience on how to win elections and what voters listen to, they listen to your authentic message as it is, no matter how horrible it is. It has to identify with that particular sector of voters. And I think the thing that we have done a disservice to ourselves as Democrats here in the state and nationwide is that we're always constantly trying to shift ourselves to try to go and pick up moderate votes or Republican votes. To your point, Dale, you just said that we don't live in a Republican state. We live in a non-voting state. So what we should do instead is to galvanize our base, expand the electorate, because our votes and people who share the same ideology with us do exist so that we can put good people who are good stewards of these offices. I tell people this all the time. There is not a world in which a Democrat running Republican light is going to convince a Republican to vote for you. Why would they vote for the off-brand version when they have the name brand version of their candidates? It is only us who are always put in the position of trying to bring Republicans to our side. Back in maybe 20, 30 years ago, that was reasonable because you had moderate Republicans, but we're dealing with such extremism that we can no longer have those conversations because we're no longer arguing policies. We're arguing life and death. We're arguing people's right to exist. We're arguing shooting people down in the street. And so it makes it hard to have conversations where we say maybe we can reach over the aisle and try to have these conversations when we're arguing whether people deserve to exist or not, if that makes sense.
And
Yeah,
I would say just it really depends on the district. You look at District 24, we had 84% Democratic turnout last election. We lost by 20 points and 75,000 votes. You can get 100% turnout in District 24 of Democrats, and you still don't win. So you have to do something. Okay. Now, there are independents who are fed up. And this is what we saw with Taylor Remmett, right? He got a lot of support from independents, people who were just pissed off and fed up. That's why you saw that flip. Fed up with ICE. I think everybody's fed up with ICE and the violence. A lot of people, I mean, they need to be disbanded. They're not a salvageable organization. Let's say that. They're not. Their culture's so broken. They're such a broken organization culturally and morally. They're not salvageable. I think a lot of people see that. That's why you saw such a big swing. But with District 24, it's the highest income district in the state. Um, you can get 100% Democrat turnout and you can still lose. So you have to be able to get to independents. That doesn't mean you're going to go after MAGA Republicans. Of course you don't. Forget it. You got, like you say, you can't be Republican light. But what you can do is you can get independents who are just fed up with the status quo and get them to come over. But the way to do that is to go around the district and build a platform based on the district. So the only way to do that is to talk to thousands of voters in the district, which we've done, and canvass the right way. My people are trained to never hand out my card unless they've actually taken notes on what's on the voter's mind. You take what's on the voter's mind, and you're at that point, if you can build a platform around what's important to the voters. But I see the comment in the chat. You're not flipping MAGA. Well, you're damn right. You're not flipping MAGA. That's 100% true. So if somebody's MAGA, forget it. Don't even bother with them. If they're independent and they say, well, I voted this way this time, that way that time, then you can say, look, let's get you to come along with the Democrats and build a coalition that beats these friggin' MAGAs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it all for me all boils back down to, I think if we're unapologetic about our values and we stand firm in them, that will actually be more attractive to voters than trying to be middle of the ground. And I'm not saying match extremism with extremism.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that voters recognize a sincerity in how people write their policies and what their platform is. And if
Mhm.
you're authentic to that platform, voters are naturally attracted to that. No matter, like I said earlier, how horrible that platform is, which is what the Republicans have been able to do so well, is that no matter, how horrible their policies are and how they affect people's daily lives, there's something that is to their voter base that is so authentic, and you hear people all the time like, yeah, show those snowflakes. That excites them, and there's a psychology in that about what we as Democrats have to do to start exciting our voter base again. And I will keep repeating that over and over again, and that is rooted in authenticity and talking about policies that affect people, and fighting. People want to see us in a fighting position. People want to know that they have fighters, and I think we've sort of lost that these last couple of years, that sort of like fire and fighter spirit that we've been known for advocating for people and families and working people and immigrants and LGBTQ people and Black people. We've lost this big tent party that we've had where we bring everybody in and we're so excited about fighting for those rights, and we find ourselves in a position where it almost feels like we're having to compromise. Like, well, maybe let's not have this group be too loud so that we can. I see a lot of this in this primary, particularly in the Senate primary, between Jasmine and James, who are fabulous Senate candidates. And there's been so much infighting already about, and most of it is centered around why Jasmine is not prepared to take this seat because Republicans are not prepared to vote for her. Well, yeah, with that attitude, they probably won't, because it's happening within us that we're compromising a candidate because of what we think that people on the other side are prepared to do. And I think that is a losing formula every single time. And so if we're authentic and we say, hey, we're presenting these two candidates, these two amazing candidates, go out there, fight for the voters, whoever has the best platform, may you win. Instead of cutting each other down for what we think Republicans are going to find is likable about us. That's ridiculous.
You're so right, Michelle, because any campaign has to speak to a higher message. So if you're not speaking to a higher message of some kind, whether it's alleviating fear, restoring the American dream, whatever it is, you have to have that higher message behind you in order to be authentic. And that's I think you're right. I think in some ways we have kind of lost that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about the congressional Senate there in Texas. It's very interesting how I really like both James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. What's interesting is that they have very different personalities and very different ways in which they go about expressing themselves. And you said, Michelle, that we need to be unapologetic. And let me ask you a complicated question then, because one thing I noticed in the congressional Senate debate between Tallarico and Crockett is that they were both asked whether or not they would like to abolish ICE. And it seemed that they didn't really want to use that terminology. They expressed how ICE is bad and how it needs to be changed. But I think what's going on here is that they're aware that if they were to say something that maybe goes a little bit too far, Fox News will cut a snippet of that and play it over and over again. Kind of like how Beto O'Rourke back in the day said, quote, "We're going to take your guns away," end quote, and prefixed that with a hell yeah. The right wing media outlets, Fox News, they had a field day over that. And I don't know if that was a mistake on Beto's part or not. So I guess when it comes to being unapologetic Democrat, I kind of wonder to what extent do we need to limit ourselves, or should we just go full all in? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's an excellent question, particularly when you sort of discuss the question about ICE and how it was sort of asked and how they answered. And I think this is where the ideology of the candidate factors in. That you have candidates who go around here and say abolish ICE because that's what they really believe. And I do believe that these two candidates, their personal opinions were not to abolish ICE, is that they felt like it needed restructuring. And so when you ask the question of be unapologetic, what I mean by that is to be unapologetic in what your set of values and what your platform is. So if you are an abolish ICE candidate, then be an abolish ICE candidate. And if you are a restructure, defund ICE candidate, then be that. What causes voters to give pause is when it seems as if people are being wishy-washy in their messaging. And so that's what makes it hard. If people feel like they can't trust your platform and can't trust you in how you deliver it, that doesn't excite people. And I think at the end of the day, people are not necessarily looking for extremism. They're looking to people who are authentic to what their particular message and their platform is. And that's what I mean when I say be unapologetic to it. And I'm not speaking for either of these candidates, by the way. I am just my assessment as a voter for as to what I saw and what I researched.
The purpose of a platform isn't appeasement. It should never be if the purpose of a platform is appeasement, you got a big problem. It should not be appeasement. It really does have to be a set of things and objectives that you want to accomplish. It's got to be driven by a set of objectives that you want to accomplish and really based on a higher mission. And if you've got both of those, then you shouldn't need to appease anybody with your platform.
I agree, John. I agree with that.
Yeah, actually, I'm talking on mute. My gosh, I gotta mind that mute button. Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, I feel conflicted. If I could wave a magic wand, I would have James Tallarico be running for governor. But James Tallarico, I don't think he had any idea that Crockett was going to join. Since I think she joined on the deadline to file, right? I think the last minute she joined. But yeah, that will definitely be an interesting race to see who wins there, and also on the Republican side of the aisle, whether or not Ken Paxton will win his primary. Because I sometimes watch these Republican primaries because it seems as if those who try to be the most extreme, even to the point they're crazy, tend to, not always, but tend to win their elections, but not always. For example, for Texas State Senate District 30 in the last cycle, there was a four-way Republican primary. And I'm blanking on the guy's name. It's a cowboy hat guy who stood up on a stage, and his platform was to say that he will, as a state senator, he will get the National Guard and troops to shoot people on site who try to cross the border. And then he signed a petition saying that should he be the state senator, he will have Texas secede from the Union. It was interesting because the Dallas Morning News, previous to that, endorsed him as the candidate for the race. And after he released a statement saying that he wants Texas to secede from the Union, the Dallas Morning News retracted their endorsement. and he did not win his primary. He got in last place. So it's kind of interesting. I kind of wonder if the concept here is that in a Republican primary, the craziest person wins, but if the crazy person goes a little bit too crazy, maybe there's a threshold. I don't, I don't know. I don't know. Do you guys have any insights upon how Republican primaries work? I know I'm probably asking the wrong crowd, but what
I
do you
think
guys think on that?
there is a fine line between being authentic to whatever ideology of whatever level of politics you subscribe to and completely having gone off the rocker. So I think people, and on any side, there is ideologies and things that you're fighting for, but then there's also like, okay, yeah, this is like something is not right here. And I think everybody on every side of the aisle is able to recognize when it's like not feasible or reasonable. Uh, there, I think for on the Republican side, being like, we want closed borders, we want all of that is something that they identify with that makes sense to them. But saying we want to secede the union, that's reaches levels of asinine that I think even then they're not going to get
Yes.
beyond.
Uh, I think you're just dealing with human nature regardless. I mean, you know, there's everybody has limits, and you take you take let's secede from the union. First, nobody believes that it's inauthentic, and that to me is really a self-destructive policy, regardless of who you are, because nobody believes it. It's not feasible, and unless you're saying it tongue in cheek for some reason, if people think you're serious, you're basically self-destructing as a candidate. It's realizing that you're dealing with human nature. People, regardless of their ideology, left or right, they want something that feels reasonable. And if you go beyond what feels reasonable to any group, uh, that's it's not going to fly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to add on to that page Stephanie Draper. Stephanie, the host of our podcast. It's good to see you. Thanks for jumping on so quick. I know that you're very busy. I believe you said you were traveling for a business or something like that. But welcome back to the show, and it's good to see you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Good to see
Hi.
you.
How we doing?
I'm doing great. I have my hot tea over here, so I know Dylan already spilled all the tea. So, yes, I am so sorry that I was late coming to the show, but y'all were doing amazing on here. And I love the topics that we had tonight.
I did too. It was a very robust discussion.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and we still got
Yes.
another 20 minutes left to keep on going.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Steph, I'm going to pass it on over to you. What other topics did you have in mind to talk about tonight?
Let me see. From what y'all done hit on, as you can tell, I barely have a voice.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm noticing that a little bit. I could pick it up if you want. Um, but
I'm gonna try to talk this a little bit, but probably not too much because I need to save it for Sunday. But what do y'all think about this Epstein file?
So I'm obviously in the middle of GOTV, but I allowed myself at least an hour yesterday to hit the search button and like start looking through some stuff. It's like 3 million files, right? And there's a search feature where you can like sort of search people's names and search like, just trying to figure out what's going on. There's just so many things that just are horrible, deplorable, disgusting. All of the D words that you can think of to throw at these files. And those, I just looked an hour, right? Some of the emails. And I am quite shocked that this is like some of the stuff in these files is not running 24/7 on the news. If you truly were able to sift through all of this and see some of this stuff, it should be posted everywhere for people to see like how disgusting it truly is.
People have a short memory. They get tired of things. Very attention spans are short, right? And the Epstein files have been around for quite a while. I'm feeling like some of this has gone beyond people's attention span. So you would have to get a nugget that just really blows the doors off of other news. If you get one of those, then I think it would pop in the news. But it's been going on for so long. There's been a lot of distractions. Um, I gave a talk on Venezuela and all the reasons that someone might invade, and the Epstein files was one of the top reasons as a distraction. We've just had a lot of distractions, and it's gone on for a long time. So there's something in there has to really just grab people's attention, or I don't think they're going to have the attention or time to sift through it. You have to be dedicated to sift through that thing.
It's
Yeah,
a lot.
you're saying, Michelle, that you're surprised it's not airing 24/7 on the news. I would say it depends on which channel. So I guess I can't share this graphic in here. I was trying to share a certain graphic, but I have a screenshot of so what I have this window that I just have playing on mute when I work and I do my day job, but it's a four quadrant television screen, if you will. The top left is CNN, the top right is Fox News, the bottom left is MSNBC, and the bottom right is OAN. And I have a screenshot of what all the headlines were at that moment. And this was earlier today, by the way, where basically Bondi, CNN says Bondi testifies on Capitol Hill amid multiple controversies. MSNBC says Bondi hearing turns contentious over Epstein files. And then on Fox News, they're covering the quote, now extensive FBI search in Guthrie mystery. And OAN is House to vote on Senate America Act today. It's very interesting to watch side by side CNN and Fox News, and watch side by side MSNBC and OAN, and they just don't cover the Epstein files at all. Like it's as if they don't exist. So it's interesting. I think that a lot of people live in bubbles, and I think it depends upon like which bubble that you're in. I doubt. I think there's probably very few people like me who watch this four quadrant TV screen. I'm just a little bit of an addict to news, but yeah, it's wild that it's not getting more attention, and it it almost kind of feels like sometimes SNL made an interesting joke in one of their sketches. They basically said how you know they distract from the Epstein files with another distraction like ICE, for example. And then they have to distract with another thing after that. Like it's controversy after controversy, right? But anyways, I'll stop steamrolling the conversation and pass it back over to Michelle. Were you about to say something? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, 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 you're totally fine. I was just processing what you said. And I was thinking to myself, this kind of ties back into the question that you asked earlier about us working across the aisle and why it is so hard to do that because you have a president who is mentioned in these files over and over again. And we're hoping that we can work across the aisle, that we'll find people who are reasonable enough. If we had reasonable people that we can work with across the aisle, they're the ones that should be screaming from the top of their lungs about how horrible this is. And the lack of having that signifies a deeper problem of why we're not able to work across the aisle because we don't share the same ideologies. And that's why it makes it hard. And I just wanted to tie you back to the initial question that you had asked because it's if I'm working across the aisle, how are you speaking out against this? Is this something that you find acceptable? Because it only feels like it's just us who are like, hey, guys, this is weird. Like, this is not okay. This is wrong. This is deplorable. And we are almost gaslit to an extent to where we're making something out of nothing. And meanwhile, these are real cases, real court documents, real pieces of evidence that exist. And yet we're made to feel like we're the ones that are losing it. And so I wanted to tie it back to exactly why it is hard to be able to try to work across the aisle because the ideologies are so different now. Maybe in the nonpartisan seats at city council because it's like we all are we can at least we can find a way to not make potholes a democratic or a republican issue but I'm sure there's a way.
This is why it would be so interesting to just go have a private conversation with all 500 people in Congress and just say, what do you really think? And you'll find some people who say, there's nothing wrong with Trump. He didn't do anything. You'll find other people who are like, well, I don't feel comfortable. I know he's wrong, but I don't feel comfortable saying anything. Well, your silence is being complicit for one thing, but for another, my question would then be to them, well, what can I do to alleviate your fear so that you can speak about this too? Because you need to. More people need to. So that's even though they may or may not, you want to separate out the people who say, no, Trump did nothing wrong. Shut up. Stop harassing the guy. You're being mean. Versus people who say, I'm really uncomfortable with this, but I don't feel I can speak out. Well, how can I help you speak out? How can I help you not be silent about this? That's the way I would tend to approach it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I like the way that John puts that, and I want to be very clear. Um, I, when there are opportunities to work together, then that is the most ideal situation, right? We used to argue about what was the best way for people who are undocumented to find their way to legal status, and we argued whether it was one giant amnesty act or it was like everybody has to apply. Those are differences in which we can sit down and discuss on how to deal with things, but it is difficult for when we're discussing that, hey, people who are undocumented or people who come here seeking asylum need for us to give them a process so that they can start a life away from harm, so they can be safe, and the other person on the other aisles like put them in cages, throw them away, we don't ever want to see them. It's hard to navigate that. And I want so much to find people across the aisle who are like, listen, we may disagree on how to get there, but fundamentally we agree on the issue that, like, we need to be giving people asylum when they're fleeing countries where they're fleeing political prosecution or fleeing death. And we agree on that, and then say, but this is the difference in how we should do it. Maybe it's not one giant amnesty act, maybe it's this. That's how we used to disagree on things, but has gone completely out of the bubble, where it is just so far beyond the scope of being able to reach out across the aisle.
It's interesting. I've seen that in dysfunctional organizations that have gone into fix, where you have people, you have different groups, and you have to find one thing they can agree on. You have to separate out the people who you're never going to get anywhere with. You separate them out, and but you will find people where you can say, can't we just agree that folks shouldn't be put in cages? Can we agree on that? Can we, and you'll find there are people, and what you want to do is isolate the people who think that folks should be put in cages. If you've got them isolated, then you can actually start creating a solution. I see this in dysfunctional organizations that are on the verge of going broke. And it's like, well, can we agree that we can make this one change to not go broke? You'll have people who say, no, I'm not agreeing to any of this, but you can get them isolated. Once you've got them isolated, then you can actually affect change. These are the types of skills that we need to bring into Congress, because we've lost our ability to do that. We don't have that right now.
Yeah,
We have
absolutely.
lost our ability on a lot of stuff when it comes to Congress. Sorry, Dale, you was going to say something? We,
Oh yeah, I was going to say we're not even people who disagree on the cages. There are a lot of times I see individuals deflecting. For example, when the children in cages were brought up, I know that Trump his immediate deflection was to say, "Well, Obama built the cages," right? It's like it's straight up deflection. It's interesting how yeah, and anytime something very serious is brought up, whether it be like the state of the economy or what's going on with ICE, is always Biden's fault every time. We bring up ICE, for example. The Trump administration says, well, it's all because Biden let so many people in through open borders, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's very difficult. I do also want to plug this real quick. I am seeing a Facebook comment by Eugene. Eugene is saying the Republicans sorry, he posted this about like 18 minutes ago, so I'm a little bit late reading this. He says the Republicans are excited because they stand in unison. Sometimes it's like herding cats with us Democrats. And he also said 14 minutes ago, I'm going all full in on the Democrat that wins the primary. We have to win! Exclamation point. Um, Absolutely. I mean, I'm worried that if we don't win this election, I don't know if we'll have another one past this. Right? I don't know if I'm being too cynical. What do you guys think? Is that I know that every time it seems like we say that this election is the most important election that has ever been in history, and I feel like we're saying that almost every election cycle. I,
We are, but it's true. Every election is getting pushed to another level, to where right now we're at this level of craziness, to where we have to get people to go out to go vote in the primary, number one, to make sure that they pick their candidate. And Democrats, please make sure you vote in the Democratic primary and not the Republican primary. And secondly, come November 3rd, it's so important that we elect good people that's going to do the right thing and that's going to actually stand up for what's right, and not trying to get these clickbait, sound baits, or whatever you want to call it, because the country is in trouble and we don't have time for all this shooking and jiving stuff. We need people that's gonna get it down there to Congress, John, and go out there and make good policies that's going to help people, because our affordable health care is ridiculous. Our child care system is ridiculous. Our Texas education is horrible. We're like the last on the bottom. Our When it comes down to, we got water crisis here in Texas that they're not even really trying to fix. They're just putting a band-aid on it. And we're going to have a freaking problem, especially when you're sitting up here trying to bring these data centers into the counties and into these cities, these small cities and stuff, that's going to deplete the water that they have. And you can sit up here and say whatever you want to say. No, it's not going to affect your water, but it actually is. You need to make sure that you tax these companies and make them build their own water supply system so they can drain their own water instead of using ours. I mean, that's common sense, but I'm just running for county commissioner.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, county commissioners can do some things about that too within their county. But yeah, AI is definitely
I know.
something. I was actually talking to someone earlier today. Someone actually was calling me up about what was going on with the Frisco City Council meeting last time, which is a whole other story. I'll go into it another time. But she was talking about how hard it is to find a job around here, and she really thinks that a lot of jobs are being taken away by AI. It's an interesting aspect here because I saw a Microsoft commercial the other day that said like, oh, they're proud to build these data centers because they say they create jobs. They create jobs to the people who like construct the data centers. And it's like, well, it's true, but you're also taking a lot of jobs away from other industries as well. But yeah, I say this as a web developer. I feel that my industry is I don't know how long my industry will exist with AI and the very rapid speed in which it's growing. Uh, we we do use AI to help out in our job now, but it's becoming a type of thing where I'm beginning to realize that, man, a kid who graduates from college, fresh out of college, can use AI and do my job. So and it's not just my industry; it's several others. But AI is definitely something that we need to regulate. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not quite sure how. How do we go about regulating AI?
Yeah.
But excuse me. But you know what, Dale? AI has been around for a very long time, even when the Jetsons was around. The
Yep.
cartoon Jetson. Now, Michelle, I know you might not know the Jetsons, but this was a cartoon that used to come on the
I
weekdays.
love the Jetsons. I have the Cartoon Network.
All
They
right.
got under the classics section.
It was a classic because it told you about the future, what's getting ready to happen now.
Yeah.
Now, AI has been around for a very long time, but now it's on, like, on 30 right now, and we humans, we're trying to catch up with it, and we're putting so much information into it to where it's going to outpass us. So you're going to need people like the college graduate. Hell, the high school kids can go and run AI. They don't even need a college degree to go run AI. All you need is a certificate, and a company will hire you. If you know AI, they will hire you like that. you know. So I would tell my seniors, you might want to learn AI because AI is not going anywhere. It was just like the internet when it was like, oh, it's going to take all the jobs away. Well, it actually helped. So we got to figure out a way how we can work with it because, I use AI a lot too, especially on my jobs and different things to help me with brainstorming some things, but I like to use my brain. So it has its ups and downs too, but it's like we have to figure out a way how to blend it in to what we do, and we have to understand it. And my question is this: how powerful will AI be in 10 years? And to what you're saying, Dale, our jobs might be gone.
You
Will we have a
know,
country in 10 years?
I teach my students at SMU and UTD that there's a fine line between artificial intelligence and real stupidity. And I allow them to use AI on quizzes, but it's not hard to fool AI on a quiz. They're like, oh, AI told me the answer. I said, well, that's why you got it wrong. So it's still going to require skill. If AI is used correctly as a tool to help you do your job faster, that's fine. But it's a horrible management practice to just blindly replace people with AI because it's only as good as its training data. Dale would know this, being an IT guy. It's only as good as its training data, and badly trained AI, it may look smart, but
No one knows what you
it
teach.
really isn't.
Because you're teaching it, you got to look at the teacher who's teaching AI.
Right.
You
And
know,
you were talking a little bit, Steph, about I like to use my brain. And it's the number one thing that I always say, especially when I'm talking to my girls here, is that for especially for younger kids, I think it's encouraging intellectual laziness as opposed to being a supplement. So it's like every single time they're like, I'm gonna go ask ChatGPT. I'm like, no, you need to think critically through
Yes.
this because it's like, yes, AI can supplement all sorts of things, but to your point, it shouldn't become the substitute for the greatest computer in the universe, which is the human brain. And these things do the particularly when I'm listening to people who are in this tech sector talk about losing their jobs and AI, it is going to have real world consequences for real people, for real families that we will have to deal with. For example, in a JP court, you're going to have to deal with someone who lost their job, who's trying to make it, who was probably in there for an eviction or whose credit card company is suing them, and it's all real life consequential stuff that we have to deal with in these systems. So this doesn't just like impact technology at a higher level, it's going to impact people's everyday lives. And I think it is okay to have technological advancements, but we need to have real solutions of how to keep people employed and able to make a living and out of JP court for evictions and for debt claims. And so I love this conversation when people talk about AI as if it's like sort of some overarching thing. And I'm like, no, this is real. This is going to have consequences for everyone across the board.
Absolutely. It reminds me of how, and this was a couple years ago, so I think like ChatGPT existed, but not to the level that it's existing right now. But my family, an extended family, we went on a vacation and we went to Colorado, and I'm blanking on the location within Colorado, but it is a very remote area where there's just straight up, there's no internet access. I mean, they barely have power, right? And there's no cell phone reception. And so we basically did not have internet access. We had our cell phones, but no connection. And we would have conversations, and it was interesting that we began to realize just how much we don't know because when you lose the power to look things up, you begin to realize just how much you actually do know on your own. And I think that's going to be something that's going to change with a lot of people over time, especially because I mean, sometimes I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily feel dependent upon using these AI bots, but they're definitely useful in my workplace. And I cannot operate at the speed at which I can operate right now without it, right? But I also know that we are coming up to time. And so, Steph, Did we want to start closing out and having our candidates give us their final stump speech?
Yes. Yes, I would love for you all to do your 2 minute stump speech there. I'm saving my voice.
I feel like we did them at the beginning, but I'm happy to do it again. I
Close
am
it out and hold on, Michelle. Make sure you tell people where they can donate to you or help you out or whatever. Make sure y'all plug that in.
Yes, perfect. So I am Michelle Butler. I am running for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 6 here in Denton County, which covers the Denton County portion of Dallas, Carrollton, Louisville, Plano, and the Colony. To donate, you can go to michelleforjustice.com, and you can also sign up to volunteer over there and for a yard sign and all of the things. And I'm basically Michelle for Justice on all of the platforms. Um, we're meeting a critical moment as to how our courts are going to serve us. JP is the most first instance that people happen upon when they're coming into the justice system. And the goal of having JP courts is to make sure that people do not get further escalated into the criminal justice system. We are here to solve problems and to mediate them. And what we want to do is have courts where we have judges who understand, one, how and what jurisdiction they have to minimize harm and not further compound it. And it takes a judge that is knowledgeable, that knows the job and the scope and the gravity of the judgments that are rendered from this bench. Does a traffic ticket complicate an immigration case? That matters. It matters having a judge on the bench who understands these things, a judge who is going to solve problems instead of further escalate them. The JP courts, if not attended to, or if they don't have a good judge who's a good steward of this bench, can further push families into poverty. If you come in and you are being sued by your credit card company and you end up having a default judgment for the next 7 years, that's going to make it harder for you to get a line of credit. It's going to make it harder for you to apply for a mortgage. And so the goal is to find solutions that work without further eroding families financially. And so, what I want is to use this court again as it was meant to be, a court where we mediate and protect families and not further compound harm through the courts. And that is why I am imploring you to vote for Michelle Butler. Early voting starts February 17th through the 27th, which means you can vote in any polling location during early vote. And we're strongly encouraging that because it gets really complicated on election day because you have to vote exactly in the precincts in which you are assigned. And if you believe in the values that we're supposed to support families and not compound harm on them and give each family the opportunity to thrive, thus giving the country the opportunity to thrive, then I am your candidate in this race. My name is Michelle Butler.
Awesome, awesome. All right. If I again, I don't know where that applaud button is. Oh, there we go. Stephanie has it.
I was looking for it.
Very good.
Wow. Tell us all about your campaign.
All right, my name's John Buchwald, and over the last 15 years, the American dream's been slipping away from people. This has been creating a sense of fear about the future, a sense of discomfort. People just don't feel they can live the life they want. They don't feel that they'll ever be able to retire. They don't feel they'll be able to get health care. This has created a large amount of fear. Oligarchs in Washington have been using fear to divide and conquer us. And this is how we've ended up in the situation we've landed in. It's the fear, and the ultimate form of fear is hate. This is the division we're seeing. This is the hate we're seeing. This is the fear that's created the situation that we're in. If we want to fix this, we can, but we have to restore the American dream. If people don't feel they have a future, they don't feel there's going to be money in their pockets, if they don't feel they can live the life they choose with good health and a home, it's only going to get worse. So I'm running to restore the American dream. And my platform is based on thousands of conversations with voters of District 24. District 24 is a big district. It spans Highland Park, University Park, Preston Hollow, goes into Tarrant County, parts of Carrollton, Capel, Southlake, parts of Fort Worth, parts of Irving. It's a very large and diverse district. The five elements of restoring the American dream are financial stability, accessible and affordable healthcare, accessible and affordable housing, fair and balanced immigration, and what I call real world ready education that prepares students for the real world. If we can do those five things well, then we can alleviate a lot of the fear that's creating the divisions that we're seeing. You can go to my website, which is citizensforjon.com. So www.citizensforjon.com. And you can just scroll right down and you can see all the policies that sit underneath those five elements. This is a very full and holistic platform that recognizes that these five elements depend on each other. And why is it going to be Beth Van Dyne? Because I believe that the voters of District 24 will vote for their own platform. This is not a platform from a party. It's not an ideology. It's not a platform from a lobbyist. This really did come from the people of District 24. The people of District 24 are hungry for a reason to not elect Beth Van Dyne. They vote for her despite disliking her. And they are ready for change, but it's got to be change on their terms. And this is what I've taken the time to do, is really understand the needs of the district and create a platform that people will vote for. And that's how we're going to get rid of this one MAGA in Congress. So I ask for your vote. Early voting is February 17th through the 27th. And the primary is March 3rd. I'm the first Democrat on the ballot for the District 24 primary. Just mark that and you'll have voted for me. And I thank you for your support.
Awesome. So very great. I guess I'll probably go next, and then Stephanie, I'll drop it off onto you to close out. My camera is not centered. Look at that. Hello, everyone. My name is Dale Frey. I am running for the office of Denton County Clerk, but I also don't have a primary right now, so I'm not going to focus on that quite yet. There's two other organizations that I do want to plug and talk about. The first is Progressive Leaders Toastmasters. Progressive Leaders Toastmasters is a Toastmasters club where you can talk about politics. Sometimes if you go to a normal Toastmasters club, you might feel a little bit sheepish about going into politics because you might not know how other people think or if they share your values. But at Progressive Leaders Toastmasters, everyone there is a Democrat, and political discussions are welcomed. Not required, but welcomed. It's a Toastmasters club. If you wanted to see what the Toastmasters experience was like, you can also see us online, as we have our events both in person and on Zoom every single week, except for holidays, on Mondays at 7 p.m. If you want to learn more information, go to Facebook and look up Progressive Leaders Toastmasters. You'll find us there. Another organization that I want to plug is the Frisco Democratic Club. We are a Democrat club in the Frisco area. You don't have to live in Frisco to come. By all means, come if you'd like, even if you live outside. I myself actually live just outside Frisco. I live in a place called the Colony. But we have two events every month. We have a breakfast club and a happy hour. Our next happy hour is Friday on February 20th of this month. So the 20th on Friday, 6:30 p.m., I bring a microphone and an amplifier, and I allow candidates to introduce themselves to speak to the audience. So it's a really fun time. We have about anywhere between 20 to 50 people show up. So we have a good audience. So definitely come out. If you want to learn more about us, come to friscodemocrats.org. Now, with that said, Stephanie, I know that your voice was, I think you said it was hurting a little bit. Do you want me to talk about your campaign, or do you want to do it yourself? Or
I'm gonna try.
okay.
You got this.
Yay. Hello, everyone. Of course, you know, my name is Stephanie Draper, and I'm running for Denton County Commissioner, Precinct 4. That covers a little bit of Denton County and all the way through from Crone, Ponder, not Louisville, I'm so sorry. It covers Justin, South Lake, a little of Westlake, and Trophy Club areas too. We also want to let you know that come Sunday, we'll be having a kickoff for me, of course. And I'm doing 55 for 55 because guess what? Who turning 55? So if you can't come, that's okay, but you can go ahead and donate to the campaign because we're trying to make sure that we get signs out there because we know we're seeing signs all over the place, but we want to make sure that we're paying for our canvas people to get out there to go canvas come this springtime. And no, I do not have a primary opponent, but I am working hard on trying to make sure that we're prepared. And I believe in making sure that we have countywide voting on election day, so that way we're not traveling all over the place. We can go vote anywhere we can in our county. And I also believe in infrastructure. We got to make sure that we take care of these roads that we have already and make sure that we expand some of the roads that we have because Denton County has over 1 million people here. And we got to prepare for the future. And that's one of the things that we need to be focusing on. And of course, we got to take care of our children. If we don't take care of our kids here, who will? So please, y'all, make sure February 17th through the 27th that y'all get out. Go vote early so you don't have to worry about finding what precinct that you're in. And if you're one of those people who like to vote on election day, do your homework and find out exactly where you're supposed to go. You can go, if you're in Denton County area, you can go to denton.gov and find out exactly where you're supposed to go vote. I'm actually wrapping this up, y'all. I can't. I've done all I can do right now. But I went to this event tonight to go speak, and I think I'm gonna over talk. I don't talk too much. This is the first time I'm gonna say I think I'm gonna shut up. I'll talk too much.
It's all good, all good.
But thank you all for coming, and I appreciate you. Please let us know what we can do to help, and don't be a friend. Come on back. We want you back. We want you back. And John, I definitely want you to beat the smack out of that
Beth Van
lady.
Dyne.
Yeah,
That lady.
that lady.
Beth
I'm
Van
not giving her credit. That lady. Michelle. Y'all make it hard when y'all be primary. But you got
we got this. We got
Hey,
this.
y'all got this here, Dell. You know you my guy, and I appreciate everything that you do for stepping up and stuff. It sounds like my voice is going. It's finna be down for the count. So I appreciate y'all. And if you are on here, please make sure you subscribe, like, and share. And come on back. We'll be back at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. Y'all have a great night.
All right.